Ciao amici e benvenuti nella Peso sulla Luna. Hello friends. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you might be just a little bit surprised because usually for this series on my channel, I begin it with an introduction in my attempt at French. But this time I went with Italian. And that's because usually in this series I use either Tarot de Marseille or antique Italian decks to answer a question that springs from the larger Rider-Waite-Smith based tarot spread that I do every week. And I've done that spread for this week. And that spread this week was about intention and power, the power we have of intention, living intentional lives, because we are eternal beings having this human experience. And it's because we are eternal beings having a human experience that we can take advantage of and we can flow with the powerful force of intention and create the lives that we want to create and have responsibility for those creations that we are experiencing. So that was all in that video, and if you haven't seen that video yet, I suggest going to watch it if you have the time, because it was a really, really deep dive. And if you're curious about that, I will put a card up here. Just click on that card and you can jump over to that larger spread of this week. And there are also other spreads of previous weeks, but this link is only for this week's spread. And from that spread, I pulled a question. And the reason why I am starting this video with an Italian introduction is because I'm using an antique Italian deck. And I have decided to use my I Naibi di Giovanni Vacchetta, which comes in this wonderful box. It's from Il Meneghello. And if you're curious about this deck or are interested in purchasing it, I'll have a link in the description box below. I think this deck is still in print, and if it's not in print, it will probably be reprinted. These decks at Il Meneghello, thank the heavens, when they do go out of print, they get reprinted. And they reprint them in like 2,000 deck lots. And the owner, the creator of the shop, has unfortunately passed into non-physical, but his daughter, I believe, is the one who is now running the shop, and they are keeping things in production, which is a blessing for us all. So if you're interested in this deck, you can get it, I believe, at the shop, and there will be a link below. It's a gorgeous deck, and I'll show it to you in just a moment. So I'm using an antique Italian deck, which explains the introduction in Italian, Appeso sulla Luna, yeah, hanged man in the moon. And so from that larger spread, I pulled this question. How does working steadily and being reliable express love in our intentional lives? It's long, it's a little convoluted. Let me read it again. How does working steadily and being reliable express love in our intentional lives? Now, why did I pick that question? Well, I picked the question because in the larger spread, one of the questions was, how can I express more love? And it was funny because the first answer to that question was the Two of Cups, which in Rider-Waite-Smith is the love card. It's the romantic love card. Even more so than the lover's card, the Two of Cups is generally, especially for me, the love card. In I don't only read it as lover in a romantic relationship. It's an expansive meaning as well. But if I were to put one keyword on it, I would call that the lover card. Which makes sense for the question, yeah? How can I express more love? Well, you can love more, right? But the second answer was the Knight of Pentacles. And the Knight of Pentacles, especially in the Rider-Waite-Smith system for me, is doing the daily work, doing the daily tasks. It's routines. It's being reliable. being steady, being steadfast, doing the daily work. So, doing the daily work, being reliable, expressing love, how do those two things match up? How do they work together? And doing the larger video, I worked my way into that answer, but still I'd like more information. I'd like a little bit of a deep dive into that relationship. So I pulled this question: how does working steadily and being reliable express love in our intentional lives? And I pulled 3 cards from this wonderful deck. Let me show you the question in printed form, and I will show you the cards that I pulled from the deck. Or that came out of the deck, I should say. Let's take a look. Just to start off with, this is a beautiful deck, isn't it? The art is luscious, it's deep, it's rich, and it's a little old, but it's actually not, I guess, that old. Let me see. I've got a date here. Il Naibi di Giovanni Vacchetta is from 1893. That's the believed printing date of the original deck, 1893. So it's not all that old. Actually, it's not that much older than Rider-Waite-Smith, which came out in 1909, was the first issuance of that deck. So just a little over 10 years, not 20, right? So having this kind of luscious art is not a great surprise. However, considering it's still a somewhat pip deck, almost of Marseille style, this is really a beautiful Italian style deck, and I love working with it. And what did we get? We had, left to right, we had the Empress, Imperatrice, we had Justice, La Giustizia, and we had the Queen of Cups, Reina di Coppe. 3 very female presenting figures, right? And did you notice that the Justice figure is facing directly out, which is normal? The Empress is facing off to the left, out of the spread. And I suppose I could have pulled a card out on that side to see what she was focusing on. And it probably, in another world, would have done that. But let's go with these 3. Yeah? And then on the other side of the Justice card with the Queen of Cups, we saw a figure. Body is facing Justice. The head is turned away from Justice, but definitely giving side-eye to Justice. So, I think the central card of this spread is where we want to dive into first. Justice. Remember, how does working steadily and being reliable express love in intentional lives? Well, Justice card, what does that mean? It means justice, of course. Yeah, we got the scales of justice. We got the sword of justice. That's justice, but it's also harmony and balance. And maturity can be another meaning. Now, the maturity of the just one. Judges, when we think of them, are the mature ones. They've come up through the ranks of lawyers, perhaps, and they are now a judge. And there is a sense of maturity there. So, working steadily, being reliable, yeah, that maturity. It's the mature side of love. It's not the puppy love of, oh, exciting, which is also wonderful. I'm not saying puppy love is bad, poo, get away from me. But there's another side of love, and it's the mature love. It's that kind of love is the kind of love that expresses itself in reliability, in steadiness, in living daily life with, rather than going off on exciting adventures. And exciting adventures can be part of a mature life, certainly. But this, when we're not focusing on that, we're focusing how steadiness and reliability are part of a loving expression in intention. That's a mature expression of love. It can be legal action. It could be cosmic laws even. The card, I mean, the justice card. It could be developed conscience. Developed conscience. And a developed conscience would, as we express love, perhaps cause us to be more nurturing of the other, be more careful, care-filled when interacting with the other. And the justice card is reasoning by rules and norms. So as we reason our way of expressing love, that could be, again, the steadiness and reliability in the environment of love. And that environment of love includes other aspects, of course. It includes passion. It includes excitement and surprise and vitality. But it also includes following the norms, following the rules of loving engagement, following the norms of loving engagement, of being there, being available, being open, making this decision to be vulnerable in front of the other. That's also reasoning out the norms and rules of love, perhaps. So we've got this justice form in the middle. And while the two cards seem to be a little bit directing their attention away from this, I don't think it's an antagonism. At least I don't want to think of it as antagonism. If you want to think of it as antagonism, go right ahead. But for me, it's not an antagonistic turning away, like I'm not looking at you. But it's perhaps this figure looking in this direction and then looking in that direction. Maybe it's this central justice balanced figure showing the two sides that the figure is balancing. And on the one side, the figure is balancing the Queen of Cups, and on the other side, the figure is balancing the Empress. So let's turn to the Empress, who is looking off this way. Fertility, right? Fertility, creativity, abundance. The abundance of fertility, the abundance of natural growth, the abundance of rainforest, for example. Protection and care is also part of the the Empress in Tarot de Marseille for me. The protection and care of a queen, because the Empress is a royal, regal figure. This Empress is in charge of their territory, their empire. Yeah? Empire, Empress, their empire. This card can also be the artistic side of expression, yes? Production and beauty and creativity. I said creativity, but irrational creativity. Irrational, not as in the irrationality of the mad person, the crazy person, but irrationality as opposed to the rationality of the emperor. Now, the Empress and the Emperor to me are pairs, are a pair. The Emperor and the Empress are both creative for me. The Emperor is rational creativity. I'm going to make this structure. I'm going to make this form. I'm going to make this. I'm going to go out into the world and put in this foundation, and then I'm going to put up these pillars, and I'm going to put a roof on it, and then I'm going to pave a sidewalk. Yeah, that very rational kind of creativity. The irrational kind of creativity of the Empress is the one of natural blossoming and flowering and natural growth, of the plants and the animals and the natural stuff of this universe, which isn't exactly structured like a building is structured, right? Yeah, there's a free growth of expansion and experimenting and reaching out and evolving in a more biological, more natural, less rational, more irrational way. That's the Empress card to me. It's a vital impulse of growth. Now there's a vitality inside of that, as part of that, as an instigator of that, and emotional intelligence as well. Now, the Emperor would be IQ. The Empress is EQ, emotional intelligence. So, working steadily, being reliable, in a creative way, in a protective and caring way. Now, you can see the stability there, right? The reliability there. Emotional intelligence is more reliable and more steady than, someone with high emotional intelligence would be more steady and more reliable than someone who perhaps has low emotional intelligence. And that all makes sense, does it not? The Empress, also again, fertility, creativity. But in a very, again, natural, irrational way, but not like this sudden burst out of nowhere. Now, there's a steadiness to natural growth, isn't there? There's a reliability to the cycles of nature. There's a reliability to the cycles of the Empress as well, I believe. And then on the other side of the Justice card, we have the Queen of Cups. And in the Queen of Cups card of other Marseille decks, we've usually got this queen seated in a throne with a canopy coming up over their heads. And oftentimes their chalice that the queen is holding in Tarot de Marseille and other Italian decks, the cup is covered. And there's a sense of, yes, compassion and calm and comfort. But there's also a little bit of a hiddenness to the queen. The king is more open. His cup is uncovered. There's a more openness to the king in the king's emotional interaction with other people. The queen, we can read it as being a bit covered, as being a little protected. And we got a little bit of that protection from the Empress as well, right? Protection, care. But the Queen of Cups is more self-protection, guarding their inner world, guarding their privacy, guarding their feelings from others, opening up for their intimate group, but not the entire world. And perhaps that adds a little bit of steadiness and reliability to the Cups card. Yeah, because there's a canopy, because there's a lid to the cup, it's not just flowing out everywhere. There's a little bit more stability there. She doesn't show everything. She doesn't show her hand to the world in a poker reference. I don't play poker, but I do know that reference. And she's attentive to emotions. She's determined to defend her feelings as well. Now, her feelings are her feelings, and that is that. You're not going to come in and tell her that her feelings are wrong, that she doesn't know what she thinks, she doesn't know what she feels. She is determined to defend her feelings. Her feelings are valid, and she knows that. But she can open up her heart. She can trust, but that trust must be earned. And again, so that adds a little bit of stability and maybe reliability to this queen. She's a mirror of divine love as well, as a potential mothering figure, not equating only mother to female, but mothering, the action of mothering a child, which can be performed by a male or a female or somebody of non-binary or transgendered bodies. Doing the act of loving in the mothering sense. But do you see all of the fire in this card? Did you see that? That's pretty awesome, I think. For this Queen of Cups card, in this image, what did we see? Pretty amazing. There's this carcass on the butcher block. It looks like a carving table or a butcher table. There's a carcass with the Queen's knife stuck in it. Behind the Queen, there is a fire raging. The Queen's ribbons are waving in the fire causes air to move, right? So there's this draft of air that comes from the fire and raises her ribbons from her dress into these flowing behind her. There's a lot of activity, there's a lot of motion, there's a lot of fire, and there's a little bit of air in this card. Now she's there raising this uncovered cup in the middle of her kitchen, reminding me a little bit of Julia Child, perhaps. And now it's time to put the sherry into the cook. Yeah, it looks like that cup is not for her cooking, that cup is for her. She's there to enjoy herself in her kitchen as she does what she wants. She cuts up that carcass, she slaps it on the fire. There's a fire, there's a passion to what she's doing there, and she's enjoying her cups, which isn't so stable. Maybe not even very reliable, but maybe there is. This cup card with all this fire and that knife sticking in the carcass, I think is a good balance for the Empress, who looks very refined, very staid, very stable in her throne with her orb and her scepter, taking care of her kingdom. Now this Queen in her kitchen with her knife and her cup and her fire, the Justice card is here in the center of both of these to give balance to these two different kinds of creative expressions. And so, working steadily, being reliable, is balancing both of these. It's not to exclude the Queen of Cups, particularly in this deck, with all of that going on, but include this and that. And including this and that in balance is a very steady and reliable way of expressing love. Because perhaps without that fiery, very passionate-looking Queen of Cups, that Empress on the other side, rather than being loving in intentional life, could look a little bit cold and maybe a little bit distant, maybe unapproachable, maybe cold. But with this fiery water, this hot, boiling wine expression of the Queen of Cups, along with this cool, very staid-looking Empress card, the balance of those two in the Justice card, I think, is what gives us the answer to working steadily and being reliable, expressing love in our intentional lives. Does that make sense? It makes sense to me. I'd like to hear from you. So friends, if you're still here, hit the like button so that this channel gets a little bit more activation in the YouTube analog sphere. It helps me if you hit that like button. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and hit the alarm bell so you get notifications of when I upload videos. I do at least 2 a week. And share this on other platforms. Yeah, you can copy and paste this link in other areas so that other people can see this if you think that they might appreciate it. And comment below. I would really love to hear from you, friends. If you're interested in a private reading from me, there will be a link below with my Instagram address. Go over there, and in Instagram, you can send me a direct message without anybody else seeing. So send me a direct message. We can work out a way for us to get you a reading from me in either Tarot de Marseille or Rider-Waite-Smith or whatever you want. We'll work it out together. And friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.